Hello, Mishpacha. It's Courtney, America's Jewish mother, coming to you with a very late Friday reads. It's almost 8 p.m. here. I've been kind of occupied today with grading final exams, but I thought I would come on here and try to film this even though I have no idea how the lighting's going to be, so sorry if it's bad. But I just got back from in-person synagogue services, which was so exciting because this was the first in-person service that the synagogue in Athens has had since March of 2020. So it was very exciting. I mean, you still had to wear a mask and everybody still had to sit apart from each other, but hey, baby steps. I was so excited to be in the sanctuary with other people, praying with other people in a community, which, you know, despite all the wonders of technology, just feels a lot more real when you're actually all in the room with each other as opposed to just virtually together on Zoom. So yeah, that was very exciting, and I'm all like rushy on, you know, like, adrenaline from getting to do that. So I was like, I'm gonna film this video. So anyway, so in the past week, I have finished 3 books. I'm currently reading 4 books, so let's go. The first book that I finished was Cynthia Ozick's newest book, Antiquities. This just came out a few weeks ago. And I'm going to go ahead and say here that you should take this review with a grain of salt because I feel like I am predisposed to like anything that Cynthia Ozick does. So basically, like, you should consider me like a Cynthia Ozick super fan, and so this is not gonna be as objective as it would be if this was not Cynthia Ozick, you know? So anyway, I love this book, 5 stars. But it's not just because I'm a Cynthia Ozick super fan that I love this book and gave it 5 stars. It was also because this book is a very detailed character study of a man named Lloyd Wilkinson Petrie, and he is telling the history. He's telling about his own history and the history of this boys' academy where he used to be a pupil. And when the story opens, we're in the year 1949, and he's thinking a lot about his childhood, about his parents' relationship, about a boy that he knew at the academy, one of the few Jewish students who went to this very waspy academy, whose name was Ben Zion Elephanton. It would be Elephantine, except there's no E on the end, so I'm going to go with Elephanton. So that really makes up the bulk of the story, or his sort of recollections about things in his life, and especially, again, memories connected to his parents and his relationship with his parents, and a cousin of theirs named Sir Flinders Petrie, who was, I guess, a famous archaeologist. Then also his memories of Ben Zion Elephanton. And really the reason I love this book is because this central character is a character who is nothing like me. He's not in the same time period that I live in. He's not the same gender as I am. He doesn't have the same worldviews as I do. And he hasn't had the same life experiences that I have, and he's not the same religion as I am. And yet, despite all of those things, Cynthia Ozick made me really care and really invested in his story. And I had a similar reaction toward the end of this slim little novella that I had when I read Kazuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day last year. I ugly cried, and I was, I really wanted this main character to gain this important insight into himself, and I was kind of devastated when he didn't. So, but I won't say anything else about that for risk of spoiling. I fear I've already said too much, so sorry. Anyway, I love this, 5 stars. I would definitely recommend it if you liked Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day. But again, I feel like even in saying that, I've already said too much, so sorry. But it's a great little story. I read it in a day and a half, and you could probably just read it in an afternoon because it's, like I said, very slim. The type is very big. I feel like there's fewer than 10 words per line, and this book has 180 pages. So yeah, you could totally just read this in an afternoon if you wanted to. So really good. Highly recommend it. 5 stars. Especially if you like a nice focused character study, which I love. So second book I finished was Terrance Hayes' collection of poetry, How to Be Drawn. I really like this overall. I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. This is a book that is about art in various forms. It's about visual art, it's about music, it's about literature, and it just kind of considers the forms that art can take in all of those forms that I just mentioned. And so there are a lot of references that Terrance Hayes makes to visual artists, musical artists, writers of literature, and some of them I was familiar with, and others of them I was not familiar with. And I think the ones that I was not familiar with, I probably did not get as much out of those poems as I did the ones with which I was more familiar. So I'm going to read you one poem in here that I really liked. I should have marked this ahead of time, sorry. It's one about Ralph Ellison. Here we go. It's called How to Draw an Invisible Man. And I feel like this is a fairly good this is a fairly representative poem in this collection. So I feel like if you like this, it's likely that you would like other poems in here. Okay, How to Draw an Invisible Man. And then, when Ralph Ellison's corpse burst open, I discovered his body had been hoarding all these years a luscious slush, a sludge of arterial words, the raw and unsaid pages with their plots and propositions, with their arcs of intention and babbling, with their mumbling streams and false starts, and their love and misanthropic thrusts, tendons of syntax unraveled from his bones and intestinal cavities, the froth of singing, stinging, stinking ink, reams of script fraught with the demons, demagogues, and demigods of democracy, demographies of vague landscapes, passages describing muddy river bottoms, and elaborate protagonists crawling through a foliage greener than money in America, before America thought to release anyone from its dream. The waterlogged monologues, one who is unseen speaks, burst suddenly from Ralph Ellison's body. And because I mean to live transparently, I am here, bear with me, describing the contents. The fictions envisioned by Emerson and immigrants, the dogmas, aboriginal progeny, scholastic recriminations, dementia, jubilee, hubris in Ralph Ellison, Duke Ellington's shadow, a paragraph on the feathered headdress of Marcus Garvey. Some of it was pornography. Some of it alluded to Negroes who believe educating black kids means teaching them to help white people feel comfortable. Some of it outlined the perks of invisibility, how we are obliged to eschew the zoo, the farm animals. It had something to do with captivity. Flayed in the clinical light, the notes printed on the underside of his flesh were reversed but readable, mirrored in the metal of the medical table, and I wanted to print it all properly in a posthumous book in the name of prosperity and proof. The genius we believed he'd wasted had been waiting all these years for a simple death sentence to break free. There's also a really cool poem in here called something like Seance with Vladimir's or something like that. Hang on, I'm going to try to find it. Instructions for a Seance with Vladimir's. And it's after this artist named Vladimir Mayakovsky, who I was not familiar with and had to look up. But what a great title, right? Seance with Vladimir's. Anyway, so yeah, I like this overall, and I think if you know more about art than I do, you would probably get more out of this than I did, but even so, I feel like I could see what it was he was doing, and I appreciated what he was doing, even if I had to look up some things throughout the volume. So 3.75 stars. And then the last book I finished this week was Walter Mosely's collection of short stories, The Awkward Black Man. I like this overall. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I think, like with most short story collections, this is one where I liked some of the stories more than others. I felt like some of them had a clearer point than others of them did. I think considering all of them together, you really sort of see this theme of the title represented, right? The awkward black man. So they're these male characters, especially African-American men, who are atypical, unusual, not necessarily heroic, awkward in certain ways, not great social skills, not sure of what they're doing in life or what they really want out of life or their relationships with other people. So I think all of these stories considered together, you really see sort of thematically this idea of the awkward black man come through, but I think if you took them individually, it's not necessarily as clear. But I did enjoy some of the stories quite a bit. And I would recommend it if you like collections of short stories. So yeah, 3.5 stars. So those are the books that I finished this week. So on to what I am currently reading. I am, I think about 75% of the way through A.R. Ammons' long poem Garbage. And because this is going to be the last Friday Reads video I record here in Athens before I go visit my parents in North Carolina, where I will be for the rest of the summer. So the next time you see me in a Friday Reads video, I will have a different filming location, and that's why. So because I have to take this back to the Athens library before I leave, and I will not be able to read from it after I finished it, I did want to go ahead and read you an excerpt from Garbage now, which by the way I'm very much enjoying, and I think is absolutely a brilliant poem. So here is an excerpt from A.R. Ammons' Garbage. Oops, nope, flipped the wrong page, hang on. I did mark it though. Okay, here we go. Art makes life, just as it makes itself an imitation. Art makes shape, order, meaning, purpose where there was none, or none discernible, none derivable. Life, too, if it is to have meaning, must be made meaningful. If it is to have purpose, its purpose must be divined, invented, manifested, held to. A wallow is a wallow, who knows? Everything here may be meaninglessly prevalent, so as to give us the potential of making's range. When we bawl over our predicament, we merely accuse ourselves. Why must we answer up to reality when we can axle reality into our illusions? Not delusional illusions, but just the turn toward the possible, the hope, the trust, the belief. Oh well, argument is like dining. Mess with a nice dinner long enough is garbage. So this is a poem that is about garbage, like actual physical garbage, but is also about art and how we create art and the process of making it, and it's also about language and linguistic garbage and verbiage. And so yeah, I really like this, and I'm enjoying this, so I'm sure I will have finished this up and have some more thoughts about it by the time I have my next Friday Reads video. But again, I will not have the book with me by then, so I won't be able to read you any of it, so I just wanted to go ahead and give you a taste of that now. So really liking this. I also started a few days ago Aiiieeee, an anthology of Asian American writers, and I'm enjoying this so far. It has a lot of prefatory material. There's like almost 60 pages worth of Roman numeral pages before you get to the actual numbered pages. So there's a foreword, and there's the preface to the first edition of this book, which originally came out in 1974, and then there's the preface to the second edition called The Big Aiiieeee, which came out in 1991. So all of that is included as prefatory material, and I read all of it. And it's really fascinating. This volume has a very sort of controversial history, and I found all that really interesting because I didn't really know that much about it. And I definitely can see why, like especially the preface to the 1974, the original edition of this is very polemical and inflammatory. It's very essentializing about who counts as an authentic Asian American, which, you know, I mean, I think we would probably discourage that kind of essentializing nowadays, but I think the editors, and this is something that the woman who wrote the forward to this version says, really kind of wanted to shake things up and get people's attention and get people talking about the volume. And I think that was a way for them to do it. They explicitly call out white supremacy several times, which again in 1974 I found very sort of exciting and refreshing, honestly. So yeah, enjoying this so far, even though I've just now sort of made it to the actual contents of the anthology. So more about this later on. I am also doing 2 buddy reads right now. One is a buddy read of Audra Lorde's Zami, A New Spelling of My Name. I'm doing this buddy read with Scott of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. I'm not quite to the check-in point yet, so I'm going to send him my thoughts about this tomorrow after I reach the check-in point. So I'm just going to leave it there for right now since this is a buddy read. I'm also reading Ralph Waldo Emerson's Essential Writings with Karen Evans. We also have not done our first check-in yet, so I'm not going to say too much about this except that, oh my god, the writing is gorgeous. And I mean, I remember that Emerson writes gorgeous prose, but oh my god, does he write gorgeous prose. And Mary Oliver wrote the, what is it, a foreword? No, it's the introduction. She wrote the introduction to this volume, and I wanted to quote one line from her introduction because I thought it was so great. So Mary Oliver writes in this introduction to Emerson, "The best use of literature bends not toward the narrow and the absolute, but to the extravagant and the possible." Fantastic. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying my reread of Nature, and again, I will have more thoughts about this next week after Karen and I have done our first check-in. So that is everything that I either finished this week or am currently reading. So thank you for watching this. If you have thoughts about any of these books, please do feel free to let me know that down in the comments below. Let me know what you've been reading and enjoying lately. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading. And until next time, what did I kill you to call your mother?